There we go. Perfect. So yeah, just a big welcome and thank you everybody for joining us live tonight. Appreciate after a day's teaching, a day's working away that you've been able to come on board and just listening to a few things that we're going to discuss tonight. My name's Dan, so I'm one of the sort of SLT at Beyond the Physical, head of education, working around the sort of professional development of our own staff and the external staff that we work with, and supporting the development of our PE curriculum. That's been an ongoing project for me for the past couple of years since joining Beyond the Physical. Very proud of what we do within our curriculum and how that's perceived and what we've done. And just there in terms of the bottom of the slide there, just recognition most recently from AFPI about giving us our approved accreditation for our curriculum resources for the next 2 years, which is brilliant to have and brilliant to be able to share with everybody working along with us, but also for those people who maybe haven't come across us before, just to really strengthen our position as leaders in education within the physical education space. And what we're doing is out there is different, but is brilliant and is a brilliant resource that people can use. And we'll delve into a little bit today and share a little bit about how what we've created is really strengthening the PE curriculum in the schools that we're working with. It's not for us to sit here and tell you to rip up your curriculums and start again, or look at things what you're doing and think it's terrible. But it's just for us really why we started to do these little like CPD webinars. It's just to give people that little bit of opportunity in half an hour, 45 minutes at the end of the day, just listening to a couple of things to kind of share some ideas, think about things you might be able to take away and add into your practice. It might be one thing that you could just add in tomorrow. It might be three things that you might develop over the course of this next term, whatever it is, but just something hopefully you'll be able to take away, a little something that'll be able to put in. And just again, just spreading the messages of who we are, what we can do to support, just ongoing with the schools in across the world. Ultimately, recently come back from working with schools in Hong Kong, which fantastic opportunity and experience for us as an organisation to go out there and share our knowledge with the teachers out in Hong Kong. But again, just for us, just to say that we're open to supporting across the board. And just a few things just to give a little bit of a nod for people who haven't worked with us or seen us before. A couple of our main strands, not everything that we do is on this slide, but a couple of the main things that we work on. So we have our PE scheme of work, we'll just point out there, recently accredited by AFPI. We deliver courses. I can put a slide up for our level 5 course. So we've just had our day one of our level 5 course today. That registration is going to stay open for a little bit longer. So if there is anybody on the call or listening back on the recording who does want to get involved in the level 5 core primary PE specialism course this year, last sort of opportunity in the next couple of weeks to sign up for that and make your way on that course. And then other courses that we run across the company as well. We're in delivering on the ground day in, day out. We've got a group of teachers working across Yorkshire, Manchester, the Northwest, and Lincolnshire and East Midlands, a wide ranging team on the ground working day in, day out, which again gives us that really good framing of what this means and what our curriculum means to lots of different schools. It's not us putting something out to schools, then leaving it and just hoping for the best. Like we are as an organisation living and breathing this day in, day out with all the schools that we're working with and all the schools that we're teaching in. So again, just really good for us to have that support, and again, support that we could provide, particularly in those regions across the country, across the north. And if there is anybody on the call who is interested in that, please do get in touch. And then that wider consultancy role, things like this professional development, things that we do outside, going to Hong Kong, traveling different places. We're going to a conference event tomorrow. We've got lots of different things throughout the year that we'll be delivering on and running. That's kind of a bit of that consultancy package and working with individual schools, groups of schools, MAT trusts, networks of educators across the country to hopefully provide some high quality PE training and professional development. So there's just a link to our PE scheme. Where people aren't familiar with it, there's a QR code. If you want to scan it with your phone, you're more than welcome to, or I'll put the link in at some point to be able to get to the page itself. But ultimately, we've got a 14-day free trial. You can go and access the things that we talk about today, this evening, have a look at it, get some ideas, take it away, and then take it from there. If you want to increase that and go a little bit longer, you're more than welcome to. If you're already using it, brilliant. I recognize a couple of names on the call are probably using some of these resources already, which is fantastic. But yeah, please do hit the free trial and look at some of the things we're going to be talking about tonight and how that could support you in your curriculums, in your domains, in what you're doing. There is the primary PE specialism course that started this morning. So the first webinar is done, but you are more than welcome to join and we can catch up. We do a little bit of a catch up session and catch up on day one And then we've got 6 more webinars booked in, ready to go. So if you are interested in the primary PE specialism, if you've not done it already, feel free to scan that QR code. I'm hoping that takes you to the courses page and you can sign up. But again, I'm happy to send things out. You probably get some emails about that as well. I think a few things are going in the chat now, so you're more than welcome to look at them and follow the links and have a look at those in time. For those people who are working a little bit more wider community organisations, I know there's a couple of people on the call and watching this back who are from organisations who work and support in their local community, going into school, supporting with PE, school sport, physical activity initiatives in their local area. We do have a Grow Together programme that's supporting community sport organisations, essentially through our scheme of work, through our courses, through our training, through our development. So if we've got a couple of different people across the regions who are supporting this programme, within this programme already. So if this is something that is interesting to you, just reach out to one of us, to myself or the team, and we'll be able to get you in touch with a little bit around Grow Together and what that means and what that could look like for your organisation, ultimately for us to support you to create the best organisation you can in your region and creating the best possible, ultimately, physical education opportunities for the children that you're working with. So again, anybody on the call who's interested in that, please do get in touch. But just to kind of kickstart, I wanted just to sort of start off with this quote. We always start with a bit of a quote, and it's always kind of been the same quote for a long time, but I thought I'd freshen it up today with a different one. And because this kind of, again, just resonated with something that we were talking about with teachers in a previous call that we were doing last week around curriculum and curriculum design. This was from the Ofsted Review. So in 2022 and 2023, Ofsted published 2 review series across all subjects, but this one specifically around PE. And this quote was like the first quote that was on the report that came back from the 2023 review. For many pupils, physical education, PE, will be the first and only place where they are taught safe, effective, efficient and intelligent movement. That rings home, that rings true to life in some of the schools that we're dealing with, some of the schools who you personally might be dealing with, that actually we know that our children that we're working with, that physical education space that you have and you're providing to them is potentially their first and only space and only place that they've got where they're going to be taught some safe, efficient, effective, intelligent, fun, inclusive movement. So really important that we get this right. Our primary school days to really set those foundations right in what we do are going to set the tone ultimately for what's going to happen in their journey beyond. So we really, really need to make sure that we're providing that opportunity within our within our physical education lessons and our PE curriculum to give children that best possible start to what we're doing. Give the children the best possible building blocks and foundations in terms of then their growth in physical education. So I just wanted to think about, put that in place and think about the resonate with your children. For some, we might work in a context where we have loads of opportunities. Our children live in quite affluent areas. They've got clubs going in after school. They've got people coming into school. They know the parents are engaged in what we're doing. But we 100% know that's not everybody. We know for some children who are living in tower blocks in the middle of inner city places that they struggle to find any safe space to go and move and be active. So our physical education classroom provides that for them, and which is why we need to get this right, why we need to get our curriculum right, and why we need to ensure that our physical education lessons are ultimately providing something that's a brilliant opportunity for our children to do, and a brilliant opportunity for our children to access. I just wanted to throw this in as well. So these aren't my words, these are from Dylan William, and for those people who have been around in education for a long time will probably recognize Dylan Williams' name from things around assessment and assessment for learning, but generally in terms of our curriculum design principles as well. 7 things that he highlighted in some of his real key principles for designing the curriculum. And again, it's not for us here to sit up and rip up your curriculum or tear that apart or start telling you exactly what to do, but it's for us to prompt and probe and think about, where is your curriculum design come from? What is it like? Where, if you start looking and reflecting on your curriculum time, which might be like now, start of a new school year, maybe you're new into the PE lead role, maybe you've just got a fresh vision coming back after summer, you've got new teachers coming into your team, maybe you're working in an outside organization, you've been promoted up, or whatever it is. Like, think about like this curriculum design and how can I refresh, re-engage, re-energize what we're doing. So let's look at like our principles and what we've got. Is our curriculum balanced? Do we see a real heavily weighted curriculum to different areas? Quite heavily, if we looked at probably 90% of particularly primary PE curriculums, a dominance on games and invasion games in particular. Is there a real imbalance of kind of where that sort of curriculum time is going? What are we delivering to our children to ensure that our curriculum is balanced? Is it always balanced towards physical? Have we got opportunities to develop that cognitive and social and emotional learning within there as well, which we'll come on to a little bit further with some sort of physical literacy drop in? Like, where is that balance? Where is that vertical integration? We're going to talk about that in terms of like alignment across those year groups. So where can we see that alignment going through? Where can we see that integration from EYFS to Key Stage 1, Key Stage 2, and then beyond, to really think about building through in those integrated years? How is that our units building on each year to support, like buzzwords like progression are great, but how is that going to look in the reality in real terms? The appropriateness of what we're putting in there. What is the appropriateness of some of the units that we're putting in our curriculum? Are we seeing Key Stage 1 tennis taught with tennis rackets and tennis balls? Is that appropriate for their age, for their stage, for their physical development, for their knowledge and understanding, for what they can do? Is that appropriate? Is it appropriate in your school to have a unit that's just netball? Is it appropriate to have a fitness unit? Like, what is it for your school that makes it appropriate and right? And where sometimes maybe is that focus? Sometimes I've heard, again, buzzword terms like broad and balanced curriculum. Sometimes people then go that a little bit too broad. Now we've dropped in some Ofsted quotes about how many activities and how little time there is, because our curriculum's just flooded with activities and flooded with experiences and flooded with sports and opportunities for our children, that actually sometimes are we losing focus over what we need to do. Is sometimes just bringing that curriculum a little bit narrower and tighter, a little bit better, and providing that real clarity of focus, like what do we actually want our children to learn and understand, and how are we going to get that across? What vehicles are we going to use to really drive that in what we do? So just thinking about some of those key principles in what you're doing, and just think about when you're looking at your curriculum now, are you just teaching a curriculum because it's what you've been doing for the past 10 years and it just keeps coming out again year in, year out? Is it a curriculum that's your predecessor and your predecessor's role, and so you don't want to kind of start shaking it about a little bit too early on because you've just started in the role and you're a bit unsure and you just think actually we'll just leave it as it is? No, is there an opportunity now for you to sort of reflect on some of these and kind of start thinking about how that's going to look in reality for me and my curriculum and what I'm going to do? And if I reflect back on my journey, like I first started in my first sort of real teaching position and being PE lead, that I then took over from somebody. I wanted to change that curriculum, shape that curriculum and do it. And I tried to tick off lots of these things. I probably didn't get it right to start with. My balance was probably a little bit not quite there. The appropriateness of some of the activities that maybe I was putting on, or the relevance to the children, I would say is a big one for me. The relevance a lot of the times linked to my competition calendar. And if I think back now to me in 2013, 2014, starting out, my PE experiences my children were having maybe were relevant to 25% of the class, not relevant for all children. So again, just an opportunity to kind of reflect and review that. And ultimately, if people have been on our calls recently and on any of our scheme training, they'll recognize this as the current sort of state of play. And it's not everybody. It's not saying it's these people on the call right now that you are doing this, but this is a current state of play within the PE landscape, particularly in primary PE, backed by research that's out there, and supporting through that. The lack of depth to learning. This was an Ofsted quote, a lack of depth to learning. Too many experiences, too little time to master, fleeting time, fleeting experiences. There's no depth to what their actual children are learning. That's a key issue that's happening. Week by week, children are moving on, coming on. I'm going to jump to that last picture, that linear pedagogy. Week 1 this, week 2 this, week 3 this, week 4 this, next unit, week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. There's no depth. There's no opportunity for children to evolve, shape it, drive differences of going through in different times, spending longer on one thing because children need to, spending longer on another. Like, we need to try and make things a little bit more non-linear to create that depth of learning, to create opportunities for children to really master skill, master learning, master knowledge and understanding. And that's often driven, that linear pedagogy often driven through the sport focus. that our focus is on, we've got 6 weeks to teach and learn a sport. So we put the sports in our curriculum. We think to ourselves, we've got 6 weeks to teach it. What do I need to do in 6 weeks to get us to a point where at the end of that 6 weeks, we can play cricket, we can play hockey, we can play netball. So I need to do this to get all that content in to then be able to play that sport. And ultimately, that's having a detrimental impact on our children. A, because of the lack of depth. B, that non-linear pedagogy. We aren't spending enough time and having an adaptation to what we're doing. And even the emphasis placed on that sport is putting children off. Children are becoming disaffected by names of sports being put on that curriculum that they turns them away. It's creating this negative pupil experience. Pupils are having a negative experience of PE on the whole in general. I'm not saying you in your school, but the research is showing that this is happening. And a lot of that, again, comes down to a lack of teacher education, limited education at universities for some. When we do teacher training, like sessions in schools, and we ask for who's had more than 3 or 5 hours PE training, very little. The education that they might get from people coming into schools might be poor quality, or people coming in and delivering, and it's just going and doing this same old of approach, linear approach, sport focus, no depth. Pupils not having a great time. So their education from even from outside agencies might be difficult. So again, this is what we're dealing with and what we're up against, and why we need to get our curriculum right, why we need to change and adapt what we're doing to really ensure that we've got have a positive impact on the children that we're teaching. And so there were 2 bits I wanted to delve into, and this was going to be my main focus of what I was doing, looking at kind of our physical literacy informed approach, looking at our mastery based approach, our pupil centered approach, and the research and evidence that kind of drives it all. Those are kind of like our 4 key pillars of kind of what we're doing. But in the meantime of kind of devising this and putting this webinar out, we did go through the process of having our curriculum resource, our scheme of work, ultimately deep dived by AFPI, a real in-depth analysis of what our curriculum offered and what it looked like. And we ultimately had to provide detailed information across these 10 areas for our curriculum to be approved by AFPI. So these 10 areas where we provided resources for and what it looks like for our curriculum. But for us, I just thought to actually there's real alignment between the 2 here, because I've only had a couple of those on, and I'll unpick a few of these in a moment. But again, just looking at your curriculum as a whole, doesn't need to be AFPI approved within your school and what that's like, but looking at your curriculum that you've got, these are 10 really good things to kind of unpick and identify for you. And I'll delve into a few of them about how we do it and how that maybe could look for you and what you might want to unpick in terms of your curriculum. But looking at some of these, like what can you see already standing out as maybe something that you might have a real strength in? For you and your curriculum, you might think, do you know what? Our children are physically active, brilliant, really good high activity time in our curriculum. They're doing lots, they're moving lots, they're learning lots. That's brilliant for us. Maybe though, we don't have as much opportunity to have that holistic approach within our curriculum. Maybe we do focus a lot on the physical development, which is key and which is a massive part of what we do. But actually we lose learning in other aspects of the curriculum because our focus is too much on that physical domain and we lose others. We might feel like we do lots of fun and engaging activities with our children, but are they fun, engaging activities which are sequenced and show adaptability and are able to allow the children to take ownership of them to create a really engaging, enriching learning environment? Because ultimately what we don't want is PE just to become a fun club. Like physical education isn't just a time where we have an hour of fun and play some games and it's nice. Yes, we need children to engage, and fun is a great way of engaging the children, but those need to be learning. We were speaking to an organisation in Northern Ireland who used to come into schools to work 4, 5, 6 activities every lesson, but it just looked like ongoing, just activity after activity after activity, just fun activities, engages children, brilliant. Physical activity, brilliant. But where's the sequencing? Where's that knowledge transfer? Where's that growth and development and progression through what we're doing to build our curriculum as it goes through that whole curriculum sequence, that adaptive practice, allowing children to find their own way of doing something, not just playing the same game all the time, how you as a teacher demand it to be. Where are the children taking ownership of their learning? Brings in that metacognition and those bits around that growth mindset of what they're actually doing in that lesson to to adapt and challenge and change and reflect and refine and all those things that the children can take a real ownership of within that adaptive practice bit as well. And so we're going to delve into some of these now, again, just to kind of bring this to life for us and what we do in terms of our curriculum and when we're in schools, but for you just to kind of reflect on how this looks in your curriculum and what you do. So the first bit I identified there was that curriculum sequencing. How can we create a curriculum that provides that spiral effect that goes around, that builds on, like progression is the buzzword, spiral curriculum, the buzzword, all these things that we can pull out of the air for all the research there. But what is it actually looking like day in, day out with your children in your schools over that sustained period of time throughout your curriculum? So I just wanted to highlight here now for like 3 blocks from our example long-term plans. We've got a key stage 1 example, a lower key stage 2 example, an upper key stage 2 example. So we need to be thinking like, where are we getting these children from? Where are we pulling them in? So from EYFS, what are we setting up in EYFS to create those really solid foundations? So what opportunities are they having in terms of their physical development, their outdoor play, their PE lessons, which they may have? Some are like stringent, like straight into PE and EYFS. Some like to build it in throughout the year. But where are they coming from? What foundations have been set there? Key stage 1 there, I've just highlighted 2 units. In red, run, jump, throw. In orange, send, receive, return. 2 units identified there, fundamental basic units, fundamentals of agility, balance, coordination, object control, manipulation, things in the key stage 1, those really early fundamentals of what we're doing. How's that then building and progressing and moving through? So in our lower key stage 2, we have a strike, react, rally unit. That's building on from that send, receive, return. So early foundations of object control, sending an object, receiving an object, moving to return it and receive it and send it. That's coming into a unit called strike, react, rally. It's not the only unit it's going to impact, but you can see this spiral and progression through where children are now utilizing hand, rackets, using object control again to hit, to strike, to move, to build up. We're not going straight into a sport. We're coming and building this up. Then from strike, react, rally up into upper key stage 2, we've got a unit called serve, set, slam, based around building competition, ultimately around net wall games. So a lot of children, creating a lot of competition within that. So there's a lot of focus around that social and emotional bit in that as well, creating rules, strategizing, setting up competitions and tournaments versus others and themselves, working in pairs. But ultimately, the foundations have been set to support the physical development in that through that send, receive, return, strike, react, rally, serve, set, slam. Where next? Where's that going to take us on next? The most likely journey then is that might be progressing into more of those net wall activities that might lead them into playing some tennis. It might lead them into playing badminton. It might lead them into playing squash. It's not us dictating in these moments of time of what sports they are doing. It's us setting those foundations of throughout all those key stages to give them a really good foundational platform to take that where they want to go. So for us, all those 3 units are 3 different 3-word learning themes. There's a different focus in each one, but the spiral goes round, is threaded between each one. Why I did the red ones is just to kind of highlight in a slightly different way. We've got run, jump, throw in key stage 1, run, jump, throw in lower key stage 2, run, jump, throw in upper key stage 2. That same unit, that same fundamental skills being developed. It's not the same content. It's not the same context that's driving that learning, but it's the same focus of what we're doing, underpinning those fundamental developments of running, jumping, throwing, ultimately agility, balance, coordination, those 3 fundamentals of movement that's underpinning everything that we do. And why I highlighted another one there is because then that other unit, speed, distance, strength, there's going to be moments in that that's pulling from those bits in that early stages of run, jump, throwing, key stage 1, run, jump, throwing, lower key stage 2, speed, distance, strength in upper key stage 2. That we're pulling out all that learning that's taken place from those previous years, that's previously gone through, to then get to a point where, again, we're accessing learning in a different way, through a different context, but we're spiraling that round and we keep that going. And then where's that going next? That might be then moving on to some athletics development. That might be some children going more specific to an athletic skill that they want to put and develop. That's absolutely fine. Where's that going to take? It might be taking them out of school. It might be taking them into a club. It might be taking them into their year 7, year 8, beyond, whatever that looks like in their future life. but we're really setting these foundations and constantly spiraling around. And why that, again, just linking back to our philosophy of our curriculum, what's been backed up by that AFP sort of deep dive, and really a key thread of any good curriculum is this mastery-based approach, allowing this mastery-based learning to happen within our curriculum, carefully sequencing topics so they build on. So this is from the EEF, if people have heard this before, the Education Endowment Fund. No, building on this mastery approach, building, setting that is progression, isn't it? Like how are we building, how are we layering these children up, how are we providing these building blocks to allow the children to grow and develop in their learning, what their knowledge and understanding is, their physical competence, their social and emotional competence, their problem solving, thinking skills. In order to do that, we've got to carefully sequence these topics. We've got to build and build and build and build. We've got to allow teachers that flexibility. We've got to think about that non-linear pedagogy, how teachers can approach what they're doing, how teachers can maybe spend longer on one thing or another. If we're flooding our curriculum with too much content, the teachers are rushing through to cover it all. They aren't then having an opportunity to think, you know what, I need to spend longer on that. The children have not got it. And we do this so brilliantly as teachers in other subject areas. In maths, they will stick on a topic and spend a couple of days and focus on it, maybe in a full week, really deep diving into that area of maths to really make sure children are mastering those fundamentals of 3-digit column addition or whatever it is. They're really delving into that. So they spend longer on it. But we're not doing that in PE as much. That's where we need to improve what we're doing. How are we providing that additional support, providing that adaptive practice, providing that so the children can build on what we're doing, and then making sure, just like we showed on that graphics there, how is it revisited? How is learning coming through and being revisited at regular intervals? Learning will be revisited in the moment, like in the lesson. Learning will be revisited in the unit. Learning will be revisited in other units within that year. And learning is going to be revisited as we go through those key stages. And that's going to really have a big, fundamental approach to what you're doing in terms of your mastery and allowing children to master. Ultimately, for us to master this, master some fundamental movement skills, the learning around mastery of fundamental movement skills. Again, quote from Ofsted, and this helps to kind of support what you're doing. If you're looking at curriculum design and thinking, how am I going to change this? I want to build more fundamentals in, but sometimes I'm getting a bit of fight back from PE leads, teachers, head teachers. Here's an Ofsted research that's showing that pupils in Key Stage 1 and 2 were not secure enough in their fundamental movement skills. It's not targeted explicitly enough. They're not given enough opportunities and time to refine. They are struggling to achieve. They're struggling to achieve the outcomes because we are not giving them the platform to build on. So we have a real focus on what we're doing within our curriculum of developing those fundamentals of movement and fundamental movement skills to give them that really good base layer fundamentally and physically of what they're doing, to be able to then layer on top, to be able to go and play a different sport, to be able to join a club and have a go, to be able to come to a lunchtime activity and try something new. If we give them the building blocks and really master these, it's important. And for a big thing from us is that I'm really glad that this research showed it, that Key Stage 1 and 2, this doesn't just stop at Key Stage 1. This doesn't stop at 7 years old. Mastery of fundamentals is essential all the way through to adulthood, all the way into elite athletes. If people have ever watched elite athletes training sessions before matches, whatever it is, there is mastery of fundamentals still going on at that elite moment. So we can't lose sight of that. We can't lose sight of how we can provide opportunities for our children to really master, to revisit, to relearn, to go through again, spiral around again the next year, go through it again in a different unit, and pull those knowledge and learning out of those fundamentals in a different way, in a different context, to really apply that to what we're doing. The next bit that was kind of identified really well, and one of our key pillars, is that holistic approach. Sorry, there's a lot on the screen here, and I'll talk through what it is on there. But again, for us, the physical has got to be as big importance as mentioned there from that fundamentals. It's got to play a massive part of what we do. But we know that the curriculum itself, the national curriculum, we know that allowing children to have success in physical education, we've got to allow for that breadth across that holistic approach. We've got to allow for children to have exposure to learning within the cognitive domain and that social and emotional domain as well. So for us at Beyond the Physical, and if people have heard it before, we talk about Move, Solve, Connect. You can see it on our logo. You can see it through the branding on there. You can see it through the words. Those are our three key words, our three core pillars of understanding that holistic development. You in your settings might have different words. I know things around like AFB, talk about head, heart, hands. If anyone's worked through the FA, I know a couple of people in here have maybe got an FA background, that have like the four corner model. Things around Youth Sport Trust are different me's, and I'll talk about the physical literacy one in a moment as well. But ultimately, all that's doing is allowing children to find success and access learning in multiple domains. We're allowing children to gain knowledge and understanding in the physical, that mover, allowing children to gain knowledge and understanding of that cognitive and thinking domain, our solver, and allowing children to have that learning, understanding, and knowledge in that social and emotional domain, which is our connector. So we have that knowledge embedded in every single unit across those three domains. One unit might lean more to one than the other. That's fine. You might have some units that you've planned and have put into your curriculum that really target that connector or really target that solver. And I would say some of ours do, which is great. But then also then reflecting on not just the knowledge and the things that we're putting that we want the children to learn, but again, looking at that bottom image, that how that's going to be applied in our lessons. So we have our Move, Solve, Connect success criteria. So our children can be successful in our curriculum across those domains. We will be assessing against all three. We're not just assessing based on physical. We're not just assessing based on fitness testing or anything like that. We're looking across those holistic development of our children to say, how can our children be a well-rounded, well-educated learner across multiple domains? And where the kind of reflection to this comes back in and where links you might be already making in your settings to this is the physical literacy statement. So the physical literacy statement that came into play about 2 years ago now. Academics in the room now, physical literacy has been around for a long time, a lot of decades, but they came up with this really clear, refined definition of what it was going to be, that our relationship with movement and physical activity throughout life. And what they highlighted within this, that middle orange section that's really key around that holistic development, they identified move, connect, think, and feel. They wanted children on adult or whatever it is in PE, school sport, physical activity, coaching outside of school. This physical literacy statement isn't just targeted at PE, it's wide ranging. We want children to be able to make sure that we can think about how we moving, connecting, thinking, and feeling. So we've really got to be thinking about in our PE, how are we aligning to this? How are we providing our children opportunities to move, solve, connect, to move, connect, think, and feel, to go through that head, heart, hands, whatever it is that you've got as your kind of stimulus, that holistic development. How are you getting that to your children? How are you delivering activities to your children that provides that? For us to be physical literacy informed, all our activities that we do, all our learning activities must engage children across those domains. They must allow children to gain knowledge, understanding, to gain success across those domains. We cannot just be targeted at the physical and say we're physical literacy informed. We cannot just target activities based on the social and say we're physical literacy informed. We've got to have that broad reaching and that holistic development to make it holistic and make it physical literacy informed. We've got to provide this to our children to make sure what we're doing. So again, just reflecting back on your curriculum, where are we seeing this coming up in your curriculum? Is it within your curriculum that you are providing move, think, feel, connect, physical literacy? Are you looking at that as ICANN statements? Is it your curriculum units designed around those words? Where is it coming into play? Some units target it one more than the other. When we come back to that, like the core principles of like balanced, is there a lot of balance towards the physical in your curriculum, but not towards the other ones? Like, where are we seeing that within your curriculum? Time to reflect and kind of refine a little bit to where your curriculum is and how you can see it, being that holistic development for your children in what you're doing. And the final sort of main touch point for us, just to kind of link in a little bit to our pillar of pupil ownership and linking again to the AFPE accreditation sort of deep dive into adaptive practice. This for us is massive in terms of making sure our teaching pedagogy and ultimately our curriculum is implemented correctly. How are we going to get this across to our young people in the moment? There's a couple of little bits on the screen there that you might just sort of resonate with a little bit. So we talk about low threshold, high ceiling activities. How can we allow children to access an activity, to get into an activity, low threshold, low stakes, maybe limited competition, maybe it's independent or paired work, that's low threshold, anybody can access, minimal equipment, minimal stakes in play. We get all our children to access, but we know we can stretch that. We know we've got that high ceiling, and the little caveat that is like wide walls. We can go wider as well as taller. Like, where can we take that? How can we still focusing on what the learning is of the lesson and what we're getting out of the learning, but how can we spread and adapt and grow through our adaptive practice? How can children take ownership of adapting what they're doing? And we always go through the four of that. And for some people, this might be like, yeah, we do this all the time. For some people on the call, this might be the first time they've ever heard these four words. But we talk about space, task, equipment, people. How are we allowing our children and us as experts in the room to challenge, to check, to refine, to reflect, and ultimately adapt their space that they're working in, the tasks that they're doing, the equipment they're using, the people they're working or playing with, or how that game's been played with the people within that. How are we providing the opportunities for our children to do that? And I think when we reflect with some teachers, it's like, because when they go back to that linear pedagogy, when they go back to, we've got to get through experiences, we've got to get through content, we lose this. We lose an opportunity to start an activity and grow. Start the activity and grow it, then grow those high ceilings and wide walls. Make it so it really resonates with all our children, that anybody can access, so we can grow and develop it in our own way. This is, teacher's going to lead the learning. Teacher is going to lead what the knowledge and understanding we want to gain, but the children can then learn or can take ownership of how they're going to go about that. How are they going to adapt that activity to get the most out of it for them? How are they going to access it? How are they going to play it? How are they going to refine it, tweak it, challenge? Maybe sometimes make it easier and simpler, because some children need that. I just like this quote. I can't reference where this quote's from because I cannot remember where I've pulled it from, but I've seen it somewhere. I just really loved it. I really loved the kind of that just linked in with this low threshold, high ceiling. Everyone can get started. Everyone can get stuck. And for me, and we're having a conversations with Paul when we're away in Hong Kong, sometimes we need children to get stuck. Sometimes we need children to ultimately get the learning out of them. We need a curriculum and we need lessons and we need learning activities that's going to let everyone get started, but it's going to get some children stuck, because that's where the learning is going to take place. That's where children are going to come up against that barrier. And sometimes for us, we jump in and try and correct it, or we jump in and try and do something to help them. And actually, we need them to feel that struggle. We need them to feel stuck. We need them to try and explore and evaluate what they're doing to try and figure out something themselves. And this is where our step principles work all the time, because it allows children to play, get started, allows children to get there. But at some point, they're going to refine it, change it, tweak it, adapt it, and they're going to get stuck. They're going to come to a point where it's like, there's a little bit of a nudge, there's a pain point, and we need to do something about it. We need to figure something out. We need to plan a different strategy. We need to change our tactics as a team. I need to throw this object in a different way because I'm not gaining that success. I need to do something differently. And that for us is where learning takes place, and that's where it's going to be. So again, designing our curriculum to allow this adaptive practice to happen, allow opportunities for you as the teacher and the expert to be able to adapt things, but again, allowing the children to take ownership of this, children take ownership of these adaptations, to allow them to do this, to allow them to have that low threshold and grow it, and to allow them to get started and get stuck and hopefully find something within there that then the learning comes from. And for us, we kind of reflect on this in our own sort of staff development, and when we've got kind of game together as our own independent staff, of like, when we're thinking around these adaptations and thinking around step and think about these changes, not just to change it for change's sake. We're not just doing it for 5 minutes and then just right, I'm changing it, do it 5 minutes, doing it right, I'm changing it again. We're not just changing it for the whole group just for the sake of it. We're really thinking about why. What is the meaning behind that adaptive practice? What is the meaning behind these adaptations that are going to take place within our curriculum? Is it progressing their learning? Is it growing and developing them as a learner, what they're doing? The second one is probably for us the ultimate. Does the adaptation mean the children can access that activity better? Does it allow them that way in and that into the activity that then allows them success and growth from there, and learning to happen and change to happen and development and growth and progression to happen? That's a key one. Is that adaptation allowing them to better access at their level that activity? Does it help master? Does it help change and adapt and really, refine what they're doing to master any skill or development or learning that's taking place? Does it build on other physical or non-physical skills? So again, that's like a key part of our curriculum. It's a key part of what AFPI mentioned in their curriculum review of their resources. Key part of what we feel we do exceptionally well within our curriculum. What is it like for you? What opportunities is your curriculum and your lessons ultimately having to allow for adaptive teaching to happening? Is it very prescriptive? Is there too much content that we're rushing through content and not actually spending enough time delving into one activity and growing it, one activity, adapt it? So in our lesson plans, each lesson plan, we have 2 activities. And then in our next lesson, we have our 2 activities and potential to use a third if we need it. 2 activities is all we need for that lesson, because each activity, we're going to grow it and develop it and adapt it and tweak it and change it. So let's just reflect on like your curriculum and what you've got in there. Is it too heavy that has a detrimental effect on teachers having to remember it all? Does it have a detrimental effect on the children having to remember all that's going through? Is it detrimental? There's too much content, there's light touch, there's no depth, there's no learning. Is it too much in terms of you're constantly getting in, out equipment and in equipment and out and in and out and in with the equipment and setting things up too much? Is it better that we have that less is more approach, less activities, deeper focus, focuses on the learning that's taking place, grow it and develop it in what we're doing? And again, just coming back to like this why. So everything we do, talk about that research backed. I won't delve into all that. All you can read them yourselves off the screen. But for us, just resonating again, particularly that bottom one, schools are building curriculum on experiences rather than what the children need to learn. We're building curriculums just on 12 activities, 12 sports, 12 things. It's not actually underpinning what children really need to learn. There's exposure to loads of sports and exposure to loads of activity, but it isn't providing enough high quality teaching time, like that bottom little bit says, to build knowledge and develop fluency of what they're doing. So that learning is not deep enough. Too many experiences, too fleeting, too quick to get through it all, not enough depth. So again, if you're coming back and reflecting on what you're doing, if you're wanting to make changes to your curriculum, pull this out. If you need to speak to stakeholders in school, the Ofsted language is great language for head teachers in schools and SLT. Go into them with this. Look, we need to make a change to what we're doing. We need to adapt it. We've got too much going on in our curriculum, too many experiences, or there's not enough depth to what we're doing, or we're focusing too much on experiences and not actual learning content that's taking place. We can still use tennis and football and hockey. We can still use those as vehicles to teach, but what are we actually teaching? What actual knowledge and learning needs to take place for our children in those units that we're delivering? And then how is that going to be spiraled around and built upon each time what we're doing? And just a kind of brief nod to this, before, I appreciate we're already on 1/2 past, so I won't keep you too much longer, but this obviously quite hot off the press in terms of Ofsted, again, Ofsted language for schools and their new inspection toolkit. There's loads of bits around curriculum in this inspection toolkit. I just pulled these little bullet points out about how they're going to gather evidence about curriculum. So what are inspectors going to do? Because it's not going to be like the deep dive process like there was before, but how are they going to pull out information about curriculum in your context? They're going to look to see evidence of that the curriculum is coherently planned and sequenced, builds on knowledge skills, literally what we've just been talking about. Is there time available within the curriculum to revisit content and deal with gaps? This is coming back to all those things those Ofsted review series are talking about, the things that we've just been mentioning. This is highlighted now in this Ofsted inspection toolkit that they're going to want to see evidence of within the whole curriculum as well as individual curriculums as well. That it has specific rigor. That thing from Dylan William in 2013 said rigorous. We need that curriculum to be rigorous. It needs to have subject-specific rigor, really having clear knowledge around the clear understanding of what knowledge the children are gaining. So they've got real clear knowledge and understanding of what's going on. We can look at that and evaluate where it's going to go. I like that bullet, the last bullet point have been refined over time. How are we going to look at the evidence that is in front of us, which is the children? How are we going to look at that and change and adapt our curriculum to suit their needs? Because last year's year 3 class and not this year's year 3 class. Last year's EYFS children and not this year's EYFS children. They're different. Our long-term plans might need to be different. What we design in our curriculum based on the cohort of children who keep coming through might have to be different. How are we going to really change and shape our curriculum based on what is in front of us? How are we going to refine it and change and adapt based on that evidence that's in front of us in the school, which is ultimately our children that are taking part in these lessons and what we do. So for me, just last 3 things to think about. I'll leave you with these 3 just to kind of ponder and go away with. And if you want any more detailed information, then we can, feel free to get engaged and put things in the chat box or share what you need to share. But start thinking around, like, how is your curriculum creating that alignment and mastery across your school? How is that? If you picked up your long-term plan now, where are you seeing learning alignment across that learning? Not just where it says football from year 1 to year 6, because that doesn't necessarily create alignment and mastery. Like, underpin that, like, what's underneath that? How are we creating some depth of learning underneath that? And how is that going through school and being aligned? Where else do we pull that out? Where else do we see that taking place within our curriculum and where we can see that spiraling through? How is it providing that holistic development for our children? Is it balanced? Is it heavily weighted on physical competency? Do we provide move, solve, connect objectives or success criteria? Do we utilize words and that holistic development with what we do in every single lesson, as well as that wider curriculum knowledge and understanding that we're gaining? How does our curriculum allow for that adaptive practice? Where do we see adaptation to our curriculum taking place? In the moment of teaching, where's that happening? Within our curriculum, where are we seeing that allowed? Our teachers then shaping and changing their long-term plan based on the needs of their children. Going back to that, like, bullet point from Ofsted Toolkit, like, are we shaping what's on our curriculum based on the evidence that's in front of us? What do our children need? What do we need to learn? How do I going to shape them and what they're learning this year? I can be adaptive day to day. I can be adaptive in my unit and change and adapt to what I'm doing, my approach to it. I can change and adapt that long-term plan to really fit the needs of my learners, not just doing it because it's there, not just doing it because we've always done it, not just cracking on and doing it. I'll use Paul's quote here, starting a first lesson of badminton in year 7 and the kids can't do it. We're just going to do it anyway because it says badminton on the long-term plan. How are we going to adapt and change it to make sure our children can better access the learning that's taking place in our environment? So I'll leave you with those things to kind of think about and ponder, and hopefully that'll kind of resonate with you. And some things might get you like, yeah, we're doing that really well. That's brilliant to hear. Brilliant to hear that lots of things that we're talking about here is like resonating with you, your curriculum, what that means. There might be some things that starting to get you a little bit more curious, things that might sort of throw at you, think, oh, I've not thought about that. I've not seen that before. Maybe I've not delved into physical literacy approach. I've not thought about the alignment across it. I've not looked at that 3-word approach before. Bit of curiosity. There might be some things we talked about there that completely challenge what you've got on your curriculum and your long-term plan. Brilliant. Like, let's think about that challenge that's going to happen in your school and your context and how you might change and shape and adapt what you do based on some of the things that we're going through. And just for people who kind of missed this at the start, I won't delve into too deep, but just to kind of background on us and what we do on the screen now for those people who don't know us and haven't worked with us before across those different areas. Again, if there's something that sparks a bit of curiosity around scheme, around our scheme, I think the free chat link went. I think the free trial link went in the chat, and I think then we've got the QR code on the screen there. Scan it with your phone if you've got it to hand or whatever you need to do. But yeah, I think the link's in the chat. Have a look, take it on board. Think, does anything within there? Can it be resonating with you in your curriculum? Is there just something that could support you in what you're doing? Do reach out if there's conversations you want to have further from that. After that free trial, if you want to speak to someone, if you want some demo, if you want to talk through anything a little bit further, please do reach out to us and we can support you in that as well. And then final call for anybody on the level 5. I know a couple of people on the call tonight have done the level 5 with us, which is brilliant. And hopefully they've got good things to say about it. But yeah, last sort of final call out for level 5, which the first one was this morning. We'll play some catch-up webinar. That's absolutely fine. If you did miss this morning, that's not a problem. That's going to close in the next couple of days. So please do get in touch with us on there. And then the grow together. just from any organisations out there, if you are working in a community organisation who wants to get in touch around our Grow Together programme, I know a couple of people on the call are Grow Together, or people within organisations do get in touch. So big, massive thank you for me. Thank you for those people who have come on live, and thank you for those people who kind of stayed on. If you've got anything you want to ask, chat, feel free to pop it in the chat now. Feel free to unmute and ask anything. If you want to stay on right to the end, because you feel like it's a silly question, you don't want to say it in front of everybody, I'm more than happy to stay on and chat to people and delve into anything. But yeah, it's a massive thank you for me for joining live or for listening back, taking your time to delve in a little bit more into primary PE and the curriculum development. And please do look out for any further webinars we are doing. We've got a couple more coming up in the coming weeks to showcase a few different things. So thank you so much for your time. Please do reach out if you want to get in touch with us. I'll stop the recording now, and then I'll leave you to have a super evening. Thank you very much.